News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Alan Gilbreth with Dark Oak Media.
And I'm Maximilian, forced to put up with these clowns in studio again.
Yeah, we're back, Max. Hey, and may I be the first to wish you a happy National Hummingbird Day.
Oh, absolutely. I already got the feeders all filled up. And
I don't
guys
doubt it.
out there buzzing around. It's great.
You know, it's funny. Some people seem to have the touch when it comes to hummingbirds. I've seen. I was at a customer's house and she had, 6 or 7 hummingbirds zipping around. Some people they don't. I don't know. But if you have hummingbirds in your life, congratulations, and today's the day to celebrate, right?
Yeah, they're so funny, and they squawk and fight and knock each other off the perch, and it's better than cable.
Absolutely. So we invite you to call in, tell us your hummingbird stories, tell us all about what you're doing to commemorate National Hummingbird Day. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we also invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and give us a like and check out the action over there. I posted the must-have item of the week. We'll probably make a couple other posts before the show is over. But, Alan, this is also Labor Day weekend, and I feel like I finally have reached maximum boringitude or boringness, Alan. I'm as boring as I can possibly
Boringitude.
So
I don't think you've peaked yet.
No.
but by all means, what is your new pinnacle of sedentariness?
Well, as you know, Alan, you and I are in the know about this. This every Labor Day weekend is Dragon Con, which is one of the biggest conventions in the country. It's a big geek celebration in Atlanta. And which is only about a 5.5-hour drive from the Mid-South, from Memphis here.
It's not that bad.
I had planned to make a run to Dragon Con this weekend and meet up with our buddy Cliff, the SCA. That's his yearly vacation. He goes to all 5 days over there.
I would not call Dragon Con a vacation, but go ahead.
It's an experience. And instead, my wife and I discussed it, and I took the money that I was going to use for Dragon Con, and we did the sensible thing, and we went to a Labor Day sale and bought a new stove. So, because all our appliances are on their death watch, and I'm thinking, okay, well, they are marked down. Apparently this is one of the best the best weekends of the year to buy stuff.
Well, knowing that the kitchen is so near and dear to my heart.
Yeah,
I can hardly fault you for buying a new stove.
Right. So
I will applaud you because I'd seen your old stove.
Yeah, and it was a toss up between the dishwasher, the refrigerator, and the stove, and
we
pulled the trigger on that. So I guess Cliff, you're on your own to conquer Dragon Con. But anyway, Alan, in a minute we got 2 listener requests this week. So people are joining in. They're getting involved with our text line, the Big M Roofing and Remodeling text line, 901-683-0989. We're going to address both of those, but in today's Great Moments in Building History, we're going to tackle let's put it this way. This was construction done before OSHA standards. Let's put it that way.
That would be putting it mildly, yes.
The Brooklyn Bridge. There's never just a clean, nice, neat, tidy story to any of these projects that we discuss, Alan. There's always a clouded history. So we're going to talk about that. It is still a marvel of construction, especially when you consider the era that it was built. We have a good must-have item of the week. Max has a new segment. I guess it's a segment. It's one of his deep cuts. That was then, this is now. We're not going to explain any further.
That applies to both of us.
I'm going to try to keep you guys updated because my kitchen remodel is proceeding forward. Like I said, I bought a new stove, and that's gonna also tie into a discussion about kitchen cabinets and keeping in mind those things are not fixed. They can be moved. Your kitchen is like a Tetris game.
It is, and the one fallacy many people have when they look at a house is that everything has to stay where it started.
Yeah, not
that
so. Walls
true.
can be moved, doors can be removed. Things can happen. So we're going to discuss that. And there's like 6 other things here on my list that I'm not even going to bother mentioning, Alan, because We know how that goes. We may get to it, we may not. And of course, if you want to call or text us, though your calls and texts go to the front of the line anyway. So, all right. Well, speaking of that, Alan, we got two. We have a text message that we want to address. Alan, this was pretty straightforward. I guess this was directed to you. It basically said, "What the heck is a wax ring, and is it important?" And after you got up from the floor in convulsive laughter,
oh man.
Nothing to see here. So a wax ring, Alan, let's explain what that is. And yes, it is important. Spoiler.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Okay, all right, on the surface of this, it's a very funny question. However, after years of experience and new homeowners, this is a critically important question.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is how a $200,000 house doesn't work because of a $2 part.
Literally a $2 part.
Honestly.
If you want to get the really good one, it's $4.
It's $4.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What? Wow. What is a wax ring? Okay, it is exactly what it sounds. It is a sticky, nasty, disgusting $2 item. It's a little plastic shield and a thick band of really sticky wax.
It looks like a jelly donut.
The jelly donut
with
you
a big
don't
hole.
ever want to take a bite out of.
Right. I mean, you go to the plumbing department, and there it is. It's just sitting there. But they have some that are plastic coated.
They have new silicone and all kinds of other great stuff. But just fundamentally, the wax ring is a filler. And that is because, plumbing isn't perfect.
No, your floor is never left. Well, you have to create an
The
airtight
wall will
seal.
never truly be 90. The corner will never truly be 90 degrees. The floor will never be perfectly level. And your toilet, it is critically important that one piece of plumbing get fitted in with no leaks.
It's funny how precarious the difference is between having sewage go out on your nice floor and not. And it's basically, folks, if you ever to remove your toilet, you will see a big hole in the center.
Yep.
And that's the drain. That's where everything unpleasant goes, and it gets
falls,
into the sewer.
right.
And of course, like Alan said, it doesn't necessarily line up. The hole may have a 1/8-inch gap. It may have a 1/2-inch gap or something between the floor and the top of or the bottom of the toilet. So that wax ring, when you go to put it in place, you settle it in there nice and evenly. You kind of gently rock it a little bit to kind of make it sit tight. And if you ever do have to replace this is a little tip. Don't put it on there and then lift it up and look at it, and then put it down and because of what you're doing is you're messing up. It's like clay.
It again. You've gapped it again.
And suddenly you're going to have so you want to put it on there gently, and then you tighten the bolts nice and easy. But yeah, Alan, it's amazing because in however many years, I'm guessing a couple centuries of toilet technology, they still haven't improved upon the wax ring. It works. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So I mean,
that perfect words, Joe. Perfect words. Because it's kind of a weird thing to have to talk about this early in the morning.
Yeah.
Because of the water pressure and the weight that a toilet has to support.
Yeah.
It is unique in your house because you don't add 200 pounds of dishes to the dishwasher.
That's a good point. Well, you might.
I've
seen your dinner party.
Well,
so yeah.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
When you're having roast emu, you
right.
do what you got to do. But this is the one spot in the house where you have a pipe fitting that has to now deal with the weight of the occupant on an intermittent pattern. It's not like it has 200 pounds on it all the time.
Right.
So it has to be able to absorb the weight without damaging the plumbing, the fitting, moving the pipe. So a lot of things play into this. So the toilet, while it is a shockingly simple idea, basically it's just a bucket of water and a hole.
Right.
And you get the water to go down the hole. Of what an amazing feat of engineering it is to get that pipe level, get the fitting on it, mount it into the floor properly, get ready to handle the weight of the occupant.
Yeah.
And, let's face it, Joe, you and I are not exactly the smallest guys on the planet.
Well, okay.
We're not the biggest.
Yeah.
We're not huge, but we're not tiny little people.
Well, let me just say this in parting. If you've got issues with your wax ring, I will say this: this is a repair that is not outside the normal person's skill set. This is something
DIY.
Basically, the first thing you would want to do is turn the water off behind the toilet.
Yes.
And flush it as much as possible, then drain it, and then you're going to see two little bolts on the base of your toilet. And sometimes one of the giveaways is, of course, if you see water leaking or unpleasant water leaking, maybe from a corner.
That doesn't matter. Any water.
Check. This is one way to fix it. And also sometimes those bolts that hold the toilet, they can rust, they can corrode, they can go sideways.
Yes.
And so that means you're not getting a solid seal, or if you sit on, if the toilet rocks, that's not good. So it's not a difficult repair. You take everything out, you clean the wax ring, definitely get some disposable gloves.
Oh yeah.
And scrape out all of the bad stuff, put a new one in, and it's a pretty satisfying repair because it makes a huge difference, and it's not something it's not too daunting for the average homeowner.
Well, I will say this, for the average person, it is going to take 2 people to lift the toilet.
Yeah, and it's porcelain,
that
folks.
That
thing can crack.
Much heavier than you think it is.
Yeah.
You
don't want to be bending water lines and things like that, so be careful.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing is when you go to put it on, take your time. Line it up.
Oh, yeah.
And basically this is where, somebody gets to be the spotter. And you kind of go, all right, do we got the holes lined up or the little post there and everything? And when you got it lined up and you go to set it down, just take your time. Let it ease down. And then when you push down on it, you've made a good, solid wax seal that will honestly last for decades.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So good question, dear listener. I don't know who that was, but that's a very good question.
Awesome.
So,
Great way to start this.
Alan, we got a voice message, but there's technical issues. Plus, it was kind of long. So,
okay.
And I happen to know this person. This is one of my customers.
Okay.
I built him a patio cover. Good Fred and Lauren. Let's give them a shout out.
Okay.
They live in Harbor Town. Now, folks, if you don't know what Harbor Town is, here in Memphis, we have a really, really unique community. It's right on the Mississippi River. This was sort of a boom back in the 90s. That's when they were building all these homes.
Yes.
And they're styled after kind of that San Francisco look where it's 0 lots. The houses are tall and narrow and deep and like shotgun and vertical.
Townhouse looking. Right.
That's what so this is a second floor situation. So I was a little perplexed when he showed me the picture. So what his basic situation is, Alan, he's got a second-story bathroom, and this is not a big bathroom. We're talking the floor on this bathroom is probably 3 feet by 7 or 8 feet. It's just kind of a little half bath
little
or
water
something.
Closet kind of thing.
Right. The bathroom itself is probably 5 feet across or something. But anyway, he's like, okay, I'm going to change the tile. It's sort of dated, big deal.
Okay.
I'll go get the hammer and he started removing it, and what he found was after he got the first couple off, it wasn't your nice, tidy subfloor or plywood or the backer board that you like to use, hardy board.
Right.
It was 1.5 inches of concrete, crumbling concrete. So apparently somebody set tile on 1.5 inches of concrete, Alan.
Just
I don't
stuffed it in there.
So the only thing that makes sense to me as to why they would do that is because when you look at his bathroom, the tile is more or less level with his hardwood floor that comes up to it. So my only thought was somebody built this thing. They go, this floor is 2 inches lower than we got to fill it up with something.
And they did.
And they did. And then they didn't even bother. My thought would be, why don't you put a couple layers of the hardy board or something, my crazy idea. But anyway, he's had a real time getting it off. And Fred's one of these guys, if he has any excuse to go rent like a portable jackhammer or he's going to be the first in line to do that. So he did. He got a jackhammer.
Well, looking at your picture right now, there is a lovely 10-amp portable jackhammer laying in the picture.
Yeah.
So, you rented the right tool because that'll get that tile up.
So he got it off, but he said, man, he was getting cuts. Tile is sharp. And the problem with tile is you'll go to pick up a piece and you go throw it in the bin or whatever, and then you look back and your hand is bleeding. Yes. You didn't even know it because those little micro edge, man, those things hurt too.
But
but
they will eat you up.
But anyway, so I guess maybe at the break I'll post pictures of this on our Facebook, Alan. But so basically, his question was what he was left with was this wavy kind of uneven floor,
Right.
And he wanted to talk about his he's doing this regardless.
Right.
He's one of these guys that he just goes for it. But he wanted to use a thin set concrete to level it out and everything.
Okay.
And I got to be honest, I don't do that much. My only concern was if you put if you do that, I feel like the thin set, I don't know if it would separate or whatever. But let's talk about tips for putting a very thin coat of concrete on, because that's the gist of what his issue was. So,
there's about 100 different products on the market for exactly what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And fundamentally, they all basically wind up being some type of thin set mortar with an adhesive added to it.
Can I ask you a question? Because when you say thin set, okay, we're talking, there's some areas here, he might only be putting a 1/4 inch of something down. So normal mortar is basically sand.
Exactly.
It's the grittiness of sand. So is this like a finer sand or something? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What
it is a finer grind. Yes, you are on the money.
Okay.
There is a lot of self-leveling products out there, and that just basically means I'm going to flow until gravity says I don't need to flow anymore.
Okay.
So if you left a little bit of a lump, it's going to sink in and it's going to self-level itself out a little bit.
Right.
I haven't had any real horrible problem with any particular brand over the years. So I don't really have a don't use this one or don't use that one.
Okay.
The big thing is make sure that it is really, really clean. Get a vacuum, get you a shop vac or whatever, and go over it and get all the dirt and hair and dog dander or whatever might be floating around in there. Make sure it's really clean. And the other thing I've learned over the years is just get you a little plant water bottle and just give it a little spritz. Just go across it and make sure that the surface is not bone dry.
Oh,
because what I don't want it to do is suck the moisture out of the thin set before it begins to cure.
Now that's an interesting tip, because I see concrete guys doing that all the time. They keep the driveway a little wet,
Right.
So there's a science behind all this.
Well, and the thing is, this is where we say things dry. We say paint dries. We say concrete dries, and that's actually not the truth.
Yeah.
There is a chemical reaction going on to being mixed with water, with oxygen, whatever, that begins this process. And if everything stays mixed in proportion, you get the results you're looking for.
Right.
I remember in particular a miserably hot day in a building with no air conditioning trying to put in a floor, and they just... The concrete on the floor was just so dry, was so old. Every time the people put the thin set down, the thin set just couldn't hold the tile. The tiles popped right back up.
That's
because the concrete was literally sucking all the water out of it and just leaving you with thin set mix sitting on top.
Now, to Fred's credit, he did one thing that I think is very smart. It's a very watery type of primer that you put on, and it sort of creates like a seal, and then you put the thin set across it. So it's
again, very liquid. It gives the concrete something to drink.
Now, Fred and I were at odds about this. My thought, I had a different opinion, Alan. I said, look, I don't care. I would, if this was me personally, somewhere underneath there's wood, because it's the second story. This is not a slab.
Somewhere.
I'm like, I would have just taken hardy board and got some longer screws and just screwed in until I hit the wood and just built off of that. I don't know. This one, I said, please keep us posted. I hope your tile isn't going to pop loose here.
Well, he's already got a concrete pad. So, he took the tile off the pad. There's no real reason to remove the pad. I might have sanded it a little bit first, just me personally.
Okay.
But again, moisten the concrete first. Use a good self-leveling thin set product, and that should give him a good, clean base to put his tile down.
But you got to really let it dry before you put.
Follow all the instructions.
And I would probably let it dry for at least, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Just let it, put a fan on there, let it really set up. And then, but I personally, Fred, we'll see. We'll have to agree to disagree on this. But if you've got any opinions about this, feel free to get in touch. This is a hot controversy. This could be a point counterpoint we've got developing.
We'll see
here.
how it turns out.
Get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, and go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and weigh in with your opinion. I think at the break, Alan, I'll post the pictures and the
awesome.
His procedure for doing this. So, but Alan, when we come back, we're going to update. I'm going to keep you updated on the progress of my kitchen remodel, and we've got a couple other good things in there. I don't know. I'm looking at the list here. Whatever. Well, it's going to be hot.
We got a good day coming.
You're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar, Memphis. We'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
The Emperor does not share your optimistic appraisal of the situation, and he is most displeased with your apparent lack of progress.
News Talk 98.9 The Roar of Memphis.
I mean, Alan, they always talk about managing expectations, and that's a life or death situation.
Well, I keep telling him mud takes time to dry. He can point his hand at it all he wants and still got a cure.
Yeah, the Emperor has no patience. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to Tool Talk Radio on Facebook. We've made a couple posts. I kept my word, Alan. At the break, I posted kind of before and after pictures of our buddy Fred. Fred he's got that Captain Kirk spirit. He's just going to jump in. He's going to
boldly go.
He boldly does things, and he's one of these guys that he will not pay somebody to do something he thinks he can do himself. Now they're raising a young daughter. He's got he's got a young kid. He's a medical guy. He's in the medical field. He needs to be taking care of his hands and stuff. And yet, he's nope. I'm not going to pay somebody to rip the tile out of my bathroom floor. I'm
having
do it
used
myself.
handheld jackhammers before, I'm totally behind this guy.
No,
go for it, man.
Fred's a good dude. So anyway, but we disagreed on the solution, and we're going to see we'll see how the results play out. My suggestion was to put hardy board under the floor. We're not going to rehash the whole thing. If you want to catch all the drama of that discussion, when Alan posts the show, you can check it out.
I don't really care how the discussion goes. I just want to be able to push the button.
Yeah. Max just loves those buttons. He's got all these hot keys that he likes to...
I have too much power in my hands.
Well, we took down the glass, so now suddenly he's all over the building.
Yeah. So, Alan, I want to keep everybody updated on the way this kitchen remodel is going, partly because there's life lessons, and our home, I think, is a very good example of what many homeowners probably experience here in the Mid-South, and really, I think, all across the country. Our home is about 70 years old, which puts us right in the middle of that housing suburban boom of the 50s, right?
Yep. And I want to point out that there are just two places in your house you really need to take a deep breath and consider what you're doing before you do it.
Right.
And that is a bathroom and a kitchen.
Yeah. Yep.
So with that said, I'm eagerly waiting your update.
So here's what's going on, and I kind of jokingly mentioned this. If you want to put yourself in the right mindset, go play Tetris for about 2 hours. Get your brain functioning in that three-dimensional problem-solving way, and then go in and make your plans. Well, we have a few issues. So, Alan, as you know, I have a Cape Cod-style home.
You do?
Which is cool, but it has many challenges because more or less I have no attic. I have an attic over the garage, which, that's not all that helpful. So in a normal home, if you want to, for example, put in update your duct work or something,
right.
You climb up the ladder, you've got free attic. Well, I don't have that.
Right.
All of my ducts are inside the walls and ceiling. Everything about it is kind of complicated. But anyway, we have a washing machine in the closet in our kitchen, which we're not crazy about.
Yes.
And our dryer is upstairs on the second floor in a back, storage room.
You do know that you do know that's like nouveau now. You are so old, you're new again.
I get it's a hassle. We're like, okay, so the goal for us is we were like, okay, either we're moving that washing machine upstairs in the second floor, that little storage room can become a laundry room, and the closet will be a pantry, or we're going to do the stackable washer. But the problem is that closet is not on an outside wall, so somehow I got to vent the dryer vent. So we're sitting there looking at that. Then we're looking at, we need a new stove. We've got a pretty decent sized kitchen, but in my opinion, it's not configured the right way. So I got to give my wife credit. We needed a new stove, and the long and short of it was, by some clever manipulation, she came up with this plan where we can basically take out one cabinet and, instead of just getting rid of it, move it to the other side, giving us this whole, ergonomic flow and everything. And I was really impressed, because sometimes when you look at your kitchen cabinets, the impression you get is, well, they're not going anywhere. They're not mobile.
Right.
Well,
no,
really, they are.
Just
There's like
bolted
a
to the
few
wall.
screws holding them into the wall, and a couple screws holding them to each other. So when you look at your kitchen, you should really think, dynamically. And I guess that was my only real message here, is like, and I guess I'll take before and after pictures, but by taking advantage of the idea that you can pick, you can move them. It's not necessarily easy. You're going to probably have a little drywall work to do or something, but still, it's worth reimagining it. So go measure your cabinets. You'll see the seam where they join together,
right?
And you may say, you know what, that one might fit across the room in another spot or something like that. So, thinking dynamically, basically.
Well, this is one of these things where you're going to have to admit to your stage in life, because your needs change. And whenever your house was built, if your house is more than 20 years old, it was built with a mindset at that time.
Oh, yeah. Of that. So houses today are so much different than 50 years ago or whatever.
We have a certain legacy that comes with every house that occasionally, and this is one of these little minor things, where, if we could just move that plug, if we could just, have an electrician come put a plug on this other side, we'll move the refrigerator, and that totally flips the functional ergonomics of the kitchen.
Right.
So a couple of $100 later, you now actually enjoy the room.
One caveat there, Alan. I will say this. When you're talking about moving and shifting and everything, moving a sink and moving like a gas line and all that other stuff,
that's involved,
especially a sink,
Right.
So keep that in mind. That may not be as easy of a,
No, that
maneuver.
gets very expensive very fast.
Right. Or even some of that high voltage wiring and stuff, So that's more, but still, just keep in mind. The good news is, if you move that stuff, it's usually in a wall behind a cabinet, so the drywall work that you have to do doesn't have to be perfect, because you're sticking a cabinet right in front of it again anyway. So one more note on this before we move on. The other reason I wanted to mention this is because in this era of supply chain issues and everything, I will say this. Like I said, I was going to go to Dragon Con, and instead I used the money because we knew that these Labor Day sales were coming up. Well, Thursday night we were already queued up. We hit up like 3 or 4 big box stores, price compared and all that. One of them had sales, but you had to order the item, and we weren't crazy about that, because they may say, yeah, it'll be in a week, but I don't know that I buy that. It could be in 2 months. Yeah. Once you paid for it, you're sort of stuck. So we wanted a place where you can cash and carry. So basically, we found a big box store. And I did have to come back with my trailer, but I just wanted to mention, folks, if you're out there and you're going to take advantage of the Labor Day sale, you better pull up with your brother-in-law's pickup truck. You get your car, you get it ready to go, because if you're waiting on delivery or other things, there may be issues where that model's sold out, and they say they're going to deliver it in a few days, and it may be 3 weeks or a month, so true. I would say the best bet is to just get it and take it with you.
This is why I'm already booked through Tuesday, and I discovered how many friends I really have. Yes.
Anyway, but it's fun stuff, and I do feel better that I took advantage of something that's going to be a lot more long-lasting than my memories of hanging out with Cliff at Dragon Con. Although I was looking forward to meeting William Shatner and getting his autograph, but next time.
I like to eat, so I'm going to go with the stove.
Okay. All right, Alan, in a minute, let's see. We're going to get to, where's our, Max has another one of his deep cuts. Before we get to that, you know who I would love to hit up and borrow his pickup truck, but he's always too busy, is our good buddy Larry Brown from Brown Refrigeration. Another terrible.
He's got a nice truck, though.
He does. He's never
Really
going to
nice
let me
truck.
use it.
Yeah.
And he's got a built-in excuse. The guy works 7 days a week.
Yes, he
he's
does.
always slammed. He can just put me off by saying, sorry, I got work to do.
Yeah.
But if you need any HVAC needs, or if you need any, it's basically I would call this a lifestyle improvement. Having clean air in your home, well-conditioned air that you can control with your phone with the smart home app is about as good as it can get. If you have any HVAC needs, get in touch with our good buddy Larry Brown at Brown Refrigeration. We had a situation in our own life, Alan. My mother-in-law had her air conditioner go out. My mother-in-law, let's just say, is a little elderly. Mm-hmm. We were concerned because we were bumping up against a weekend, and they got because he has to prioritize. So he got his guy Billy. You probably work with Billy, one of his technicians. Mm-hmm. Billy showed up the next morning. He took care of a repair. Now their solution is going to be he got it running. However, they are queued up for a new system.
Right.
He got it taken care of. However, it's going to get them through the summer. They've budgeted for it, and now they're on the way to a new updated system. Their system was pretty old. So, but that's the kind of dynamic activity they do over there. They don't, if it's something like that is called for, they can handle that. They've been there, done that, and they know all about these supply chain issues, and they're dealing with adversity very well. So,
well, they're also very forward thinking. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, all right, let's get you comfortable today.
Right.
Now let's talk about all of these changes that have happened, all of the refrigerant changes, all the law changes, and how about just the efficiency changes in the last 20 years?
Oh, yeah. They're so much cheaper to run a new they do pay for themselves.
Gosh, the difference is shocking between a new unit and what you've had sitting out there for 30 years.
Absolutely. And one thing that's great about this, Billy came in and pointed out some issue, because if you have a gas-powered furnace,
right,
there are connection issues. There's things you don't want to be leaking gas. You don't want to be if it's improperly vented. There's so many, man, I would not that's we're always talking about do it yourself. Don't do it yourself when it comes to your HVAC system.
You need a pro.
You need a expert technician, and that's what they have over there at Brown Refrigeration. And that's the great thing is that he's always on top of the latest technology. I love the fact that you can control all of this with the smart home app. Mm-hmm. And these days that's just really maximum efficiency. They just do the best work, and they have a great business culture over there. And you know what? My mother-in-law was very pleased to know that even though she called at sort of an off hour, somebody answered the phone.
Yes, they did.
They have actual people that answer their phone. So get in touch with the good people at Brown Refrigeration. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881, and you can also go to their website, brownref.com. All right, well, Max, it looks like we've got a kind of a new segment that you've cooked up, so let's hear it, man.
And now, a deep cut with Maximilian.
Yeah, you knew he had to do that, so okay.
He just loves that Fruit Ninja thing.
Yeah. All right, what have you got for us today, sir?
So it's still a deep cut, but it's got a little subtitle, and I call it That Was Then, This Is Now. It's a series I'd like to continue because there's just way too many of these things for me to fit into a single segment. So today I'm going to cover 2 obsolete structures of the home that no longer exist and their contemporary counterparts.
Oh, well, that's true because there's a lot of things. You if you go to a home in Midtown that's 100 years old, you're going to, why are there, these things?
You're going to look at this thing and go, what is that?
Right. What's that door there for? So, okay, that's kind of a cool one. Let's hear it, Max.
All right, so the first one you might not really find in a lot of homes, but if you do, please do text us because I would be rather curious to hear. So believe it or not, Murphy Bed had a competition.
Yes.
Everybody knows that Murphy beds are those beds that fold out of the walls. Well, today we're going to discover the Sorlein ceiling bed.
That sounds like it's making a comeback. I thought I've seen some of these YouTube videos.
It is making a comeback.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
For tiny homes and everything.
Yeah.
Right. The tiny home people, they're doing this. So, but a Murphy bed is the kind that's spring loaded and it folds out like down. So the headboard is at the bottom of the thing.
Right. It attaches to you're basically the bottom of the wall. And
there have never been any kids that play around with that thing and get trapped in the wall.
Oh, it's never been the source of any number of sitcoms in the 50s. No.
Right.
No.
Okay. But how does this new
here
bed
we go.
work,
The
Max?
ceiling bed.
The Sorlein ceiling bed, first patented in 1913, the bed was lowered from the ceiling via a crank with hidden weights in the wall working to counterbalance the bed. And to quote an ad from the time in 1917, it said, a transmission drum is concealed in the wall by means of a hinged door 15 to 6.5 inches set flush within the wall.
Yes.
And then these folding legs on the bottom of the bed made sure that sleepers enjoyed a properly grounded night's rest.
I thought I saw one of these on a Three Stooges video. Didn't it go
You did.
wrong or something?
You did. You did.
So wait, Max. So you had to crank your bed down.
Yes.
I guess the advantage is if you're living in a little, apartment in Brooklyn and you have no space, you just crank it and then.
Well, the new version actually uses an actuator, so you have like a remote control for it.
Okay.
So it has instead of a manual crank, it has a powered crank in the wall, and you can hit the button and it will bring it straight down and pick it straight back up.
Hey, Max. Before we move on, I have concerns about. Well, did they tell why this thing went obsolete and why it's making a comeback? Because I have my thoughts about that, but.
Well, I think maybe I'm not sure why it went obsolete, but it's like, I think the reason
it went
it's
obsolete because of the suburbs. Now you had more space and you didn't need it.
It wasn't a space
I think
issue,
the reason it's making a comeback is because of the tiny home revolution. Because it's
Okay.
like when you have less floor space and everything, and okay, I only need my bed for like 9 hours or 8 hours out of the day. So it's like, just send it back up whenever I don't need it. And not only that, but they said, according to the advertisement, like when it's not in use, it may remain in the ceiling without collecting dust or getting the mattress and bed clothing disarranged. So it's like you kind of leave it as go ahead.
That's my that's my concern, Max. So okay, great. You don't get dust on there. However, our bodies, whether it's microscopic or what, we give off moisture.
Right.
I don't like the notion of you're sleeping in your bed, especially if it's the summertime or something.
Right.
Then you just crank that thing up and then you trap it where there's no air, no airflow, and that little microbial bits of moisture. What is that doing every day? I could see it getting mildewy. I don't think that's a good...
Actually, the opposite happens.
Okay.
It fully desiccates the bed.
You love that word, Al.
I
You
do.
purposely use that
I
word.
love that word because it works.
Okay.
Desiccation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Which
That is
means
the
what?
medical term to dry out.
Okay. All right.
So what happens?
So that's what happens? It dries it out?
Yes. If you recall the Fifth Element, he had a variation of it that slid out from underneath the cabinet and saran wrapped the bed.
Because wouldn't the heat from the attic and everything also kind of cause it to like all the little all the moisture to evaporate?
Yes, that's what I mean by the full desiccation, because you're rolling it up into a warmer area. And because your house is so dry,
Yeah.
it will actually keep the bed nice and fresh.
Okay, objection number 2. You just described the ideal home for spiders and bugs. Think of what they could do. Unless you have an absolute, hermetically sealed thing, I could see them setting up headquarters. Then you get into bed and boom, you got a family of spiders
Well,
right there.
all right, that is only if you leave it alone for a long period of time. You're going to crank this thing down for all night. You're going to put it back up all day. So you're
Okay.
going to have perpetual motion going back and forth with this thing, thus making it less attractive to any critter that would want to live in it.
You're really trying to. Are you getting sponsored by these
No, actually, I've
retracting
seen.
bed companies?
I've actually
okay.
seen these, and I've even worked on. I even worked on one of these 1,000,000 years ago. That was the old in-wall crank in an ancient house out in North Carolina, and I thought this was just the funniest and most radical thing I had ever seen.
You know what?
And,
My buddy Fred would get one of these. He likes
Yeah.
any gadget, any type of thing. So
Well,
yeah.
all right,
okay.
unlike the Murphy bed, which folds up
Yeah.
into the wall. and
Your life
sits
depends on a
upside down.
spring holding it in place.
Right. Well, basically there's a catch. With this one, you let it down and you're safe. Nothing is going to spring back into the wall. Nothing's going to pull you back in.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was just gonna say, before we get back, hit the break and everything. I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the second one.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You had two of them.
Two.
Yes, and speaking of
What's
two,
number two?
what's
Max?
number two? It's a little fun fellow called the Pittsburgh Potty.
Oh my God.
Now I finally set that one up right. The Pittsburgh. Now, Max, people are eating breakfast now. Can you describe this tastefully?
Yes. So,
Pittsburgh
in pre-World War II era homes, you might find a lone toilet that seems somewhat misplaced in the basement, but there's a potential purpose for it, and it's not a private bathroom. It's called the Pittsburgh Potty for a reason. It's because one of the legends revolves around the fact that, like, when coal miners getting back from work and full of grime and everything, they would also find showers in the downstairs basement as well, but they wanted to get cleaned up before they went back up to civilized life in their home and everything. And so they would use the bathroom downstairs and everything. And, it didn't matter if they collected dirt. This is before finished basements and everything. People really cared about it. So they would use the bathroom, go back up and after they were clean, they would go back up and have dinner with their families. That's one of the more legendary aspects of it. But the more practical aspect, or the practical theory behind it, was that, plumbing wasn't necessarily perfected back in the day. So let's just say that I believe like when it comes to like plumbing ruptures and everything, the lowest point is going to get affected or get the flooding.
Everything goes downhill.
Everything goes downhill. And so why not destroy your unfinished basement and everything with flood water, as opposed to your lovely toilet upstairs being affected and getting flooded? And so it served as a proper counterbalance and everything, until plumbing finally got revised.
So what made this toilet special? It was its location?
It's its location, precisely.
Okay, because in Chicago, I saw things like that growing up. You'd see, one of my friends had a shower downstairs. That's because if you're playing, and in fact, he was a football coach or something.
Right.
So if you're grubby, you don't want to go and mess up your clean.
Right. It was the beginning of the mudroom.
Yeah, so you walk in, you get all the rough stuff done.
Except this was for really mud.
This is a toilet you could hose down with a fire hose and clean it, right?
This was was just basically all right, if you've ever gone into one of these basements, there's kind of usually a side entrance over where you came in. You didn't go in the house.
Right.
So if you'd been in the coal mine all day, you walked in, you took all of that dirt into the basement with you.
Okay.
And by the time you went upstairs, you looked like a human being.
And maybe even just do a rough rinse off, and then you do your fine clean, your finesse shower upstairs.
There was usually a floor drain and a kind of a hose down there to kind of spray you off and a potty.
Okay. That kind of brings us to, I'm just going to mention, like, a lot of structures or certain obsolete structures back in the day revolved around keeping the outside out so that you don't bring it in. And so as we explore this topic more, we're going to see other structures that were built for just that specific purpose. Because nowadays we're pretty spoiled, because like we can bring that, we don't really have to worry about bringing the outside out too much, because we lived in a time where like roads are paved and we don't walk around in mud 24/7, and we don't work with steel. We don't work with in steel mines and get all grubby.
Well, some people do, Max, but I will say this, that I don't think you're going to run out of material anytime soon. So because there's any number of things in the homes of yesteryear that you look at and you go, what the heck is this device? Or what is this?
I'm taking him to Natchez with me.
Yeah.
I have some great spots to show him.
Yeah, very good, Max. We like these deep cuts. Max is always looking in the unusual corners
places
of home improvement. So, and if you've got any deep cuts that you want to suggest to Max, you can get in touch with us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Well, Alan, hour one of Tool Talk Radio is in the bin.
In the can, you mean?
In the can, ba-dum-bum. So, but hour two is coming up. This is Tool Talk Radio. We'll be right back.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Alan.
And welcome to Hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. As a few people already have, Alan, we invited people, if you're just tuning in, Max has created a new segment. It's an outgrowth of his deep cut entries that he likes to bring us. This one's called That Was Then, This Is Now, and he's going to be exploring, what are these, Max? Obsolete things that...
obsolete structures of the home and their counterparts.
Yeah, so things that the homes pretty much every home used to have. You know, you may look at a home that was built 100 years ago and you're like, why is that thing there? Why is that window there? What's that door over there? What's that cable? Well, Max is going to unpack that. He brought us to today something about the Pittsburgh potty. And something, what was the retractable
The Sorlein ceiling bed.
Sorlein ceiling bed. Well, people have already been weighing in with requests. So, Max, I guess you'll fish through those and decide which one you want to do. So, also, if you're just tuning in, you may want to scoot over to the Tool Talk Radio Facebook page and do that anyway. It's always a good idea. You can check out our must-have item of the week. You can check out a story that is It's a tile drama. It's unfolding with one of our listeners, a friend of mine, Fred. He and I are on a little bit of a disagreement as to the solution. I wish him the best, but he ran into a very unusual situation with a concrete subfloor that, to me, I can't figure out why it's there other than somebody had extra concrete floating around.
I've run into that numerous times.
Anyway, so you can follow that, and we'll keep you posted. I guess he'll probably send us pictures when the floor is finished, But and if you missed that, just go, Alan, where's the best place for them to go when they want to hear all of our past shows?
Well, they really need to pop over to tooltalkradio.com, and they can explore, honestly, years of content.
That's true.
We're available on YouTube and Spotify, so you can just look up Tool Talk Radio and take us with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's always a good idea, and we always like to interact with you there. And, Alan, you said you've been looking at the statistics. And there's some news here, which there's a little competition going with,
Well, due to the magic of the internet, nothing is just local or anything like that anymore. We had broken into the international market a couple of years ago. We had listeners in Great Britain, a few in Australia, a couple around Asia, and some people popping up around. A few months ago, I noticed that Canada, Australia, New Zealand had all kind of joined the Great Britain group, and they were kind of over there. And over the last 90 days, all I got to say is hello, New Zealand.
So New Zealand's checking in.
11% of our international listeners are now all listening in New Zealand.
Now, I wonder what kind of issues, plumbing issues, develop when you have your water flowing the other way. I mean, are there advantages? Because if you ever go to Australia or the land down under or New Zealand, you're going to notice that they swirl back. They swirl backwards, right? Because
we're backwards for them. So
all of you flat earthers, go explain that to me.
Yep.
Anyway, not to segue too much, but now that we're bringing this up, there was a great Batman comic that I read when I was a little younger, and Batman was kidnapped and he was thrown on a plane, and they flew him for hours, and when they took him to the place where he was being kept prisoner, he deduced that he was in either Australia or New Zealand because the toilets flowed backwards.
That'll do it.
Anyway, sorry guys, but
well,
we love checking in. We'd love for you to send us some messages.
Ask us some questions. We'll dive in for Down Under.
I'd love to know what they deal with. I mean, these are maybe beyond our ability. These are people that are dealing with boa constrictors getting into the plumbing, and
we have that in Florida.
You talk about critter wars. They have, everything on the way to school is trying to kill you. So we'd love to hear your adventures out there, folks. So, but Alan, in a minute, we're about to get to one of our favorite segments of the week, great moments in building history. Before we do that, though, let's discuss our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling.
Well, he has a great moment in roofing history.
He does. Quick question. Today is also National Hummingbird Day. Do hummingbirds have any interest in getting in our homes?
No.
Okay, good. Because, we're
zero.
Okay,
None.
because if you're attracting the hummingbirds, I want to make sure they're not trying to set up headquarters under your gap in the roof.
They have the cutest little nest made out of spider silk. However,
Okay.
they're just adorable.
So there's no conflict there.
Nope. You want all the hummingbirds you can get.
Okay, however, that's not the case with many creatures.
Squirrels,
we've got
raccoons,
squirrels
possums.
that damage the roof. I've had my run-ins with squirrels and keeping them out of my home. And you know what finally fixed it? My new roof from Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Jay Hill, because I had issues for years. You helped me block them out. But if you've got any roofing issues, including damage from critters, I mean, that's a real issue, especially here in the Mid-South.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the best sale for Jay. Get in touch with our good buddy Jay Hill. Among other things, Jay is a 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer, which do not take that for granted, folks. Putting in a roof today is it's all about staying up with the latest technology and installing these roofing systems correctly. Yes. Also, we probably need to showcase this more often, Alan. The demolition is an important part of the process, and getting the roof prepared for your roofing system. That's something that they are well qualified for too.
And amazingly fast at.
Yeah, that's what's great. Jay's got a well-oiled machine. His crew, when it comes to your roofing needs, you don't want your roof taken apart for a week at a time. No. This is something, generally speaking, unless you live in a mansion, they're going to get that roof on or off and on in the same day.
Yes.
Or die trying, because that's the whole philosophy. You want a quick turnaround. It's going to be a little noisy there for the day, but at the end of it, you are going to have a beautiful roof. Yeah. The systems that they function basically with the mindset, it's not just what's going on the outside of your roof, it's what's going on underneath, with keeping the roof running cool. Yes. with their ridge vent systems. And in the very near future, Jay is already being schooled on solar powered shingles.
Absolutely.
GAF is at the cutting edge of a lot of technology, and even just simple things of reducing the temperature of shingles. We talked about that story a few weeks ago with solar reflective paint.
Yes.
That GAF is developing. Well, they develop all of that in their shingle technology. And the great thing about Jay is that he's also a former insurance agent, because especially with your roof, it can get very tricky if you're trying to navigate a insurance claim, which many people, they qualify to have their roof, replaced or at least repaired through their insurance company. Well, you need an advocate that knows what they're doing, and Jay he's very uniquely qualified, and plus he's just a very dynamic personality, and he loves remodeling projects too. They've got a great team for that, so especially unusual projects. If you want to convert your garage into a home office, or if you want to take that attic and convert it into living space or things like that, that's sort of the things he gravitates towards. So all around top-notch workmanship, and just a great person to work with. Allan and I have both had our roofs replaced from Big M Roofing and Remodeling, and we stand behind it 100%. You can call Jay directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Allan, it's that time of the week.
And now, great moments in building history.
And if you have any idea of who that mysterious voice could be, call us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling text line. I'd love to know who that is. Max is keeping his mouth shut. He won't share. All right, Allan, this is interesting. So this week, as we pointed out, okay, there's a few ways we could have gone with this. To be honest, there's a lot of bridges in the world.
Yes.
I explored a few, and then I thought, well, why don't we go for the one that's probably got the most drama? At least among the most drama. It's the eighth wonder of the world.
There is only one called the eighth wonder of the world. You are right.
The Brooklyn Bridge, which everybody, Allan has proudly got his ownership certificate, right? You bought the Brooklyn Bridge, and that's its own story that we'll probably unpack in this discussion.
The bridge that brought us so much. Oh, my gosh.
This is a bridge built before OSHA standards. What does OSHA stand for?
It's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Yeah, this one,
this was built before we had cars. This was built before we understood atmospheric gases.
So we're talking the late 1800s, and I believe the date was, 1860? We're in the midst of...
It opened in 1883, and it took 13 years to complete.
Right, which, that's... in those days, not bad.
We're talking about 1850s for the, we would really be nice if we could get across this piece of water.
Just once, Alan, I would love to have a nice, neat and tidy story about some great moment in building history that didn't involve human drama and tragedy and whatever, but I just don't think that's going to happen. This story, I wanted to unpack this because it's partly... it's just showing what life was like before they had a lot of safety standards and things like that. And how fortunate we are today to have those standards in place because people lost their lives building this. So, let's just say it right out of the gate.
A lot of times we go, wow, what a stupid rule until you find out why we have this rule.
Exactly.
Then you're kind of like, that was bad. Yeah.
Right. Well, right out of the gate. So the designer of the Brooklyn Bridge was a guy named John Augustus Roebling. Mm-hmm. He didn't get too far because he designed it and then sadly passed away. I thought he was injured on the work site in some random freak accident. It wasn't even. There's debate
thought he,
as to what
stubbed
happened.
his foot or something, and then 3 weeks later he died of tetanus.
Yeah, it's just out of the blue type of situation. So right away there's sort of a clouded launch. So his son Washington Roebling took over. And
the wife, Emily Warren Roebling.
So by all accounts, he and his wife had a really good marriage. Now, this guy, Washington Roebling, what I do appreciate about him, because apparently John Roebling had quite a bit of money. Washington grew up with you could say with a silver spoon in his mouth,
with
but
privilege.
he was he worked. He
Right.
served in the Civil War. He fought for the Union. He proudly served, and also, he was on the job site every day. He wasn't sitting back and telling people what to do. So this guy, was deeply involved in the project. Unfortunately, being deeply involved in a project this dangerous cost him, it cost him his health, you could say.
Yes.
And his wife, Emily, took over. So there's three personalities involved here. Emily apparently is a very dynamic personality. So, but let's talk about how this thing was built, Alan, because... this is sort of horrifying and sort of fascinating at the same time.
Well, yeah, because we're trying to get, for those that don't know, we're trying to get across salt water.
I didn't think of that factor.
All right,
it's
so
interesting you mentioned salt water. It's what is it about? It's not a mile. It's like, what is it about? It's like half a mile or something like that?
Roughly about there. When you get the entire suspension and all of that, the total length of this thing is... the total length of the complete construction, not just the bridge proper, is 1.1 miles.
Okay, because there's a lot of overland.
A lot over onto the land and all that kind of stuff. But number one, we got to start with, this is the East River. Mm-hmm. So the East River is right there, but the salt water is right there. It's not like we're 20 miles inland.
Right.
So this bridge has got to be able to withstand the force of a river and the force of tides.
Yeah.
So let's just start with what would be a modern, very serious problem.
Okay.
And we're in 1850 looking at the East River going, do we really want to get to Brooklyn that bad?
Because up until then, they had to take boats. It's just ferry boats across.
We're looking at the difference between Manhattan and Brooklyn.
Right.
And at the time, those are your two pinnacles of this area.
Sure.
So
it
only
would be
makes
something
perfect
that you're
sense.
looking right across, and it's like, what a hassle. A bridge does make a lot of sense. So.
And if we can get a train, if we can get an elevated train
now you're talking.
out of Manhattan to Brooklyn, man, we got this covered.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and by the way, we can put a deck on it so the horses don't get scared by the train.
Right.
So these are the ideas.
And it's a walking bridge, too, so it's fully functional.
These are the ideas going through people's heads in 1850. The problem is, we have a river bed between basically two islands, as far as construction is concerned, that has to deal with salt water and tide.
Yeah.
Wow.
And let's face it, the weather is not exactly ideal there either. You're dealing with freezing temperatures in the winter, and
it's hot, it's cold,
ocean conditions that you're dealing. Wind.
And if you look at this thing, it's not exactly built out of big shiny aluminum girders.
Right.
It's stonework.
It's very beautiful to look at, I will say. And I think this was one of the first constructions that used steel cabling. They showed the cable system that they created. I can't remember.
Right.
I
It's
thought
an
they said
early
there's like
suspension system, and it's a hybrid.
Yeah.
Because we have the big stone towers like you would see in Europe.
Right.
But if you look at the top of it, you'll see the steel wire suspension, which scared a lot of people because nobody really understood the physics that wires on top would keep the bridge from falling down.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because I thought that part of the logic with the wires is you need a certain flexibility with the bridge. You can't keep it. So this bridge will move.
Bridges cannot be rigid.
They have to move. Right. So that's important, and the cable is a great way of distributing the weight and spreading the weight across. So I did want to. Okay, so we do know a little bit about. I guess they're called tension bridges or something like that. But the big thing for me is I really wanted to talk about these caissons because honestly, okay.
How did we get the tower to stay up?
I've been doing research on bridge building, and I guess we must have used this one for our bridges here on the Mississippi River and everything. But they use caissons, which basically is you stick a giant tube down into the water. It's kind of like if you took a cup or something, I don't know, you put it in the bathtub and you found a way to pump the water out.
Right.
You've created a space that has got mud on the bottom and you've got all the ocean forces outside. I would otherwise call this a death tube. Okay. I mean, this sounds and then you start digging and you almost go in reverse. You're building a wall in reverse, right?
Well, okay. Well, let's go back to Brooklyn in 1850, and we didn't quite have steel caissons available yet.
Okay.
This is where the idea came from. What they originally built was a really big wooden box, made it airtight, piled it with granite stones, and sunk it to the bottom of the river.
Okay, and we're talking about like a 15-foot diameter or 10-foot? It's narrow. You can only fit. I thought I read that you could only fit about 8 guys in there or something. And they're digging underwater, 200, whatever this is, underwater, digging by hand. Man.
Without any understanding of air pressure or gas mixes.
Just sounds awful. There's humidity. There's the danger of water flooding. That's how people died doing this.
Over 100 of the workers building this thing came down with what they called caissons disease.
Can you tell me what that? Because that's otherwise known as the bends. Okay, but I don't really know what the bends is. Okay. Is that from breathing in and having all the weird pressures?
Well, no. This is for how different gases react to different pressures.
Okay.
Because, if we compress CO2 down hard enough, it'll freeze and become a solid.
Right.
All right. Well, if we take nitrogen and compress it, and then we begin bringing you back to the surface, all of the gases in your blood don't bubble up and turn back into gases at the same rate.
Is that why scuba divers have to come up slowly?
Yes, because you're waiting on all of your blood gases to stay at the same, more or less, viscosity.
Oh, man.
So nitrogen will separate early and quickly and thus send air bubbles through your circulatory system, causing the bends, which is very painful, can be very damaging, and could even result in death.
Well, and it did, and it was sort of a mystery because people are like, "What's wrong with these workers?" For one thing,
you were fine until you came up.
For one thing, okay, Alan, I get claustrophobia. Just that alone,
you are not going to be a good
this place.
You ain't going to make it.
It's dark. You're breathing in humidity. At any moment, some idiot could hit the shovel the wrong way and flood it and flood the entire structure.
Yeah.
Washington Roebling, the guy that designed this, that's the problem. He was down there in the caissons quite a bit.
Yes,
and that's what got him. I don't think he died from that, but he did become so ill that he couldn't
become very ill. Yes,
he couldn't function. That's why his wife Emily took over. But they eventually got it up. And it still stands today. And I thought that engineers have, said that there's no reason this thing couldn't be standing centuries longer. It's very well built.
Well, and it was able to be renovated. They renovated it back in the 50s. I know in the mid-80s, it was completely renovated all the way down to the caissons again.
Yeah.
And in 2010, they did a nice update on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well built.
It's still standing and working good.
And it looks cool. It's a good-looking bridge. It's just, man, I'm glad, though, like we say, I'm glad we've learned, because they still do caisson technology
we
today.
Use that a lot.
But they've improved the
drastically.
Techniques. Maybe we need robots that can do this stuff, Alan. I'm
but we don't want them to get robo-bends.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, check it out. Do a deep dive on the Brooklyn Bridge. We think you'll be fascinated. Very well done. Anyway, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio here at News Talk 98.9 The Roar Memphis. We're going to take a quick break. We've got a lot of things, Alan. We've got our must-have item of the week and a few other juicy bits.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allen.
There's something about an underdog that really inspires the unexceptional.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
I mean, that's sort of our bread and butter right now. That's what we live by. So anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we invite you to go to the Tool Talk Radio on Facebook and to give us a like. Check out a couple of the stories we posted, including our must-have item of the week, which we'll get to momentarily. And we also, if you miss any episodes of Tool Talk Radio, never fear, because you can binge listen. Really, you can go to Spotify or YouTube, or just go to tooltalkradio.com directly. You post all the links there. You even post them on our Facebook page. So
I do indeed.
I feel like the Facebook page is sort of a one-stop shop, because you can hit all the links, and you can weigh in and tell us what you think of things. I don't know if we want to know all of that.
I want to know.
Yeah. And we've already been getting some texts that are probably going to play a role in future shows, because Max has introduced his That Was Then, This Is Now segment, and apparently people are finding that very interesting. So
indeed.
I want to remind people, too, that if you want to get in touch with us, so two things. If you want to leave us a text message, you can do that 24 hours a day, any day of the week, at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. However, if you want to leave us a voicemail outside of our show hours, then you need to do it on my personal line, which is 901-921-7105, which that's where I've been getting those. I got one from Fred, and it was just too long to play, so I basically compressed it, and that's what we read today. So, Alan, it's time for our must-have item of the week.
Oh, you got one of our favorites today.
If you're on our Facebook page, you already know what this is. But Alan, tell people what I am holding up.
The ratcheting wrench.
Okay.
Oh,
what was
my
the
gosh.
British?
The ratcheting spanner.
Spanner. Okay, so this is basically, this is a 10-millimeter wrench. You've all seen these wrenches where they're basically, I guess they're called open end. They're a combination wrench. On one end,
right,
it's open end, just basically crescent wrench, and then on the other side, it's closed, so you can get your, Well, the beauty of this one. Listen to this, folks. It's got that satisfying ratchet. What I love about this is it's basically a ratchet. It does the job of a socket wrench, but it doesn't. You don't have a socket attachment.
Right.
It's got a forward and reverse. It's got this nifty little, clip here that you switch it to go tightening or loosening. But now I don't know that I'd have an entire set of these, Alan, but there's always those. This is a 10-millimeter. I don't know what it is, but I use a 10-millimeter bolt more than just about any other size. I use it for my car. I use it on certain jobs. There's certain projects that, for whatever reason, there's certain sizes you use a lot of. So if you've got those, I recommend getting this. It's great for getting into those tight areas.
Right.
Like I said, especially a vehicle. I think this one fits my battery terminal. I can't remember.
Well, and we use 5/8 and halves all the time in the medical because it fits.
Right.
That's every bolt on a wheelchair.
There you go. Yeah, because you got to get into some unusual positions to get that.
Oh, yeah.
to get that tightened. But it's one of these where, you know how we say it only takes a little more to go first class. For an extra, I want to say $5 or $6, you can get the ratcheting attachment. And for, like I said,
wonderful.
there's those handful of sizes. I would say maybe get 1.5 inch. There's a lot of bolts out there that are 1/2 inch, 3/8, 3/4. And then the smaller ones, I feel like you get the most bang for the buck, because I don't know how much strength and torque they can handle when you get into some of the much bigger sizes.
All right,
So
well,
I'd stick with these smaller.
Yeah, they're
you
not
know.
a locking wrench,
Right.
So I mean, they're for your lighter duty type work,
Right.
So again, just pop over to our Facebook page, look for Tool Talk Radio, and check out the picture.
Yeah, check it out. So that's pretty straightforward. Well, Alan, it's in our notes. This is something I somehow missed this. You know, I got these new bifocals, and sometimes when I'm looking down at the page, some of them are easier to read. I didn't tease this at all, but I want to get into this discussion. You and I were talking about this last night in our exhaustive show prep. I want to talk about refinishing and repairing antique furniture, because there's a whole different dynamic in that. And I'm in the middle of doing that right now. If you're keeping score, folks, you know that I've been on this really big job for a customer in Midtown, and her home is basically, it's been completely renovated, and it's an older home, but it's updated. Everything's modern. However, it's time to remodel all the bathrooms, and so she's kind of hired me to be more or less the general contractor for this project. So among other things, she's hunting for a new vanity for the guest bathroom, and she's been. This is a person that's very thorough. She's all over the internet. She drove to Nashville to go look at vanities. She's
serious.
3.5 hours. She hunts. She scours it, and she didn't find anything she liked. Then her sister-in-law had this old, it was an antique, I don't know what you'd call it, like a chest of drawers or something.
Okay.
She said, you know what? If you took the top off and put some marble, this thing, and a lot of people do that. They'll take an antique piece of furniture and they make
repurpose it. Right.
Repurpose it, and suddenly you've got a really interesting one-of-a-kind statement for, Well, so she hired me. This thing definitely needed work. So I wanted to talk about the whole role, because it's one thing to go to a flea market and you find something and you're like, I'm going to paint this and I'm going to turn it into a whatever. When you inherit something, or when you have something that's an antique, I feel like there's an added pressure and an added dimension that I wanted to unpack.
Well, Joe, I'm going to throw in a couple of things. All right, if you're going to go junking, then you have no emotional investment.
Emotional investment is the whole key.
Yeah, you have no emotional investment, so you're looking at this, and so let's say you're talking to your wife, and you kind of go, since we're redoing the kitchen, this funky table would work perfect in the corner.
Sure.
It's $5. You don't care.
If you cut it in half and break it,
if it dies, you don't have to explain to anybody what happened.
Right.
Now, when you get to inherited stuff, which is just one family member away from being something that somebody found junking.
Right. That's probably true, yeah.
As I look at friends, as we're getting older, I look at all this stuff and I go, all these things you think is valuable is going to be at a flea market the minute you're out of the house. Your niece is going to unload your entire house full of junk for $50.
Now, not necessarily, Alan, because
old does not mean valuable.
Well, if there's a story behind something, it's not going anywhere.
Again,
for example,
emotional investment versus actual value.
Right. Okay. Well, so this basically is a piece of furniture that I guess has been in the. Okay, so it's her sister-in-law's piece, but this is a very tight family. They're going to be at each other's homes a lot. When this is finished, she's going to go in there and see the finished result.
You better be able to show it off. Right.
So there is a certain respect you have to show for the for the piece that it was. Well, that puts a lot of pressure on people, and it also, the fact that it's old makes you wonder, oh man, how much of this can I change? You want to keep the character maybe of the piece. So right out of the gate, one tip I want to say is, you just got to get out of that mindset. You got to just you gotta have confidence that if you make changes to this and if you improve it, it's gonna help it. Now, don't go paint. Don't take something that's made of mahogany and then paint it, red or something. That's probably yeah, that's
kind
not
of wasting the mahogany.
But
Right.
there are things that you can do. Now, one caveat here: just because it's old and it's sort of an antique, don't assume that it's necessarily well built.
No.
I've seen this thing. If there's any glue in this piece, because I've already taken the top off, I've already dismantled a whole bunch of panels and stuff. And if there's any glue in this thing, I haven't found it, Alan.
Okay.
These things are coming apart pretty easy. I don't even know how the thing stood up. I mean, honestly. So
That's fairly common.
So I took it apart, and I'm like, okay, so this thing's going to have to support a piece of marble, like a big, heavy.
Right.
This thing's 63 inches across. That's a 5-foot piece of marble. So I need to make sure, and it's got wood turned legs, so it's not a solid base that I'm putting
Right.
it on. So, but one thing I wanted to point out is I would start by giving it a good cleaning with a nice solvent. That's what I did, because there's years and years of gunk and oily thing. Because we're basically, this is a wood. This is I think it's stained with a very light stain, but we want to sand. We want to get that layer off and put a new clear coat and things like that. But
Okay.
getting rid of the gunk, Alan, for sure. What's
Yes.
the solvent you like to use for that? Because there's really different choices.
It depends on what it's stained with, but generally I would start with just a couple of cotton balls and some isopropyl alcohol and
Yeah.
go over it. And that generally gets most of what I would call your human debris, just skin oils and stuff. Well, I mean, people have been touching it and all
Right.
that. So generally that gets that kind of stuff off. Now, if somebody was using it in the kitchen, I might even use a light mixture of Dawn dishwashing liquid,
Okay.
because that'll get rid of your heavier duty, more commercial, more kitchen-y
Right.
debris. And then you can keep stepping up. It depends on if you're trying to strip paint or if you're trying to get rid of something or bleach it or.
Well, what I did, because I'm a big fan of rubbing alcohol too. I
Right.
like things that evaporate quickly, and I want something that's not going to leave an oily. Like I'm not going to grab the mineral spirits or something. I like the. So
I avoid those if I can.
I
Right.
grabbed a packet of those rags that have it's made of a t-shirt material, and I grabbed a quart of acetone. And
That'll
you
do it.
talk about that stuff you could pour it on the rag and you could just feel it evaporating.
Yes.
Don't put it over. Don't breathe that stuff in, folks. Make sure it's a
Make sure-
well-ventilated area. I'm working in a garage with the garage door open, but what I did, it definitely got rid of the greasy film. It started to break up the surface, and then it just required me doing the light sanding, and now I'm down to bare wood, man. It's awesome.
That's it.
So, but one thing I wanted to point out, one benefit of that initial cleaning is this piece of furniture is fairly straightforward, but it does have a few areas that are there's decorative elements, but it had a solid stain on it. And once you scuff that, now people may be intimidated. They're like, I can't touch this with sandpaper. Well, trust me, folks, if you've got something with a decorative edge to it, or maybe it's got a little bit of a fleur-de-lis or something in there, the minute you just give it a light sanding, all of a sudden all those details just pop.
Yes.
And it looks cool, man. It's a very good look. So, and it adds to the character of the piece. So our basic look we're going for is, I wouldn't call it shabby chic. It's going to be, it's going to have a nice finish, but we're getting rid of all of the, we want all the lines to stand out, stand out. So that's why I'm sanding every line that comes out. Sometimes you see that in a kitchen cabinet, Alan. Have you ever seen that where it's like a shaker style and somebody scuffs the edge so that all the edges stand out? So, that's sort of the principle
it's
here.
Just, basic human use over the years. And one of the mistakes people make is wanting to eradicate all vestiges of use.
Right.
And that actually diminishes the piece a little bit. You want to clean it up, you want it in good repair, but if there's a good story as to, that was when Granny's favorite dog Benji,
Right.
chased the cat into the side of the cabinet and ran up it, and
Right.
That's the family emotional investment.
Yeah, that's what's cool. And honestly, you could even celebrate that if there's a famous, burn mark that Aunt Mabel put on there when she was rescuing or who knows.
Yep.
Well, then you highlight it maybe or something. But
it'll eradicate it, right?
Yeah, because this piece does have some of those kinds of things. You know what I found in there, Alan, which was sort of random. When I took the drawers out, because I removed the drawers and I had to basically reinforce them, and I'm sanding those and everything. I found a bunch of those old-fashioned bobby pins.
Awesome.
Which told me, though, that maybe this was in somebody's room, and I feel like there was layers of some of that old hairspray. You know that stuff is miserable over paint. You got to get that off if you're going to paint or do anything.
It's almost like a shellac.
It is. It's like a shellac.
Oh my gosh,
years and years of
tough.
something. Yeah. So, but anyway, it's also I wanted to ask you about this. So I told you if there's glue in here, I haven't found it yet.
Right.
So, this is old wood, and just one quick little thing to throw out there. If you have a piece of furniture and you're kind of curious how old this might be, one of the telltale signs is if you look around, especially the backside or underneath, and you don't see any Phillips head screws. If you see flat head screws, it's at least what is that? At least 80 years old, or maybe 100 years old, right? When did we start doing Phillips heads? Because that's sort of a quick little.
It's just a slightly prior to World War II. When you're ramping up manufacturing is when the Phillips head screw really caught on.
Right. Okay. So that's just something. So this piece, I'm guessing, is probably 100 years old or something like that. But because of that, I don't want to just rely on glue. So I've become a big fan of these thin, those thin, they're kind of like a hex head screw that you screw in. They have a very small footprint. I'm using like 1.25 inch screws,
right.
And they're not the big chunky deck screws or anything.
Right.
So I'm using glue and I'm reinforcing it with that, with those types of screws, and I'm pre-drilling. If you're going to put screws into an old piece of furniture, definitely pre-drill, because that stuff's going to split.
Yeah,
and it's dry.
Don't let it split on you.
But I would say if you're going to do anything with refinishing an antique piece of furniture, please, respect the piece, but don't be so respectful that you're afraid to do anything, because you're going to miss an opportunity to really bring it back to life. This thing looks cool. I did take pictures, Alan, so I'll show the before and after, because just a simple sanding and a cleaning, suddenly it just pops now. And then we're going to put some new hardware on it, and it's really going to,
taking lots of pictures as you take something apart is your roadmap to putting it back together.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. Yeah.
Take lots and lots of pictures. And that way, that also becomes part of the emotional heritage of the piece, because now you can sit around and show, Cousin Millie that, hey, look what we did. And, this great vanity used to be that old piece of junk that was in the corner.
Right.
And it just adds to the family, the family history or family baggage that you want to carry it with it.
Absolutely. So if you've done any interesting renovation or, interesting repairs or restorations of an antique piece of furniture, let us know. Send us pictures. You can send us pictures and texts anytime at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline at 901-683-0989. And, of course, leave us a voice message if you want to discuss any of this on Tool Talk Radio. If you want to catch us off hours, call me directly at 901-921-7105. Well, Alan, I want to get to a discussion that we've put off for weeks. It's been in our show notes, and I didn't tease it in case we didn't get to it. But before we do that, tell us what's going on with Geeky Side TV this week. So,
well, over at darkoakmedia.com, Geeky Side TV, we've been having a good run with Geek Tank Radio and Tool Talk Radio. Plus, we've added a lot of new episodes if it came from the international market. So you can watch, some of my dear friends eat weird stuff that I buy for them and make them eat, and which is always hilarious. And finally, I'm going to pop out to the Caribbean Festival this afternoon.
Oh, I heard about that. So,
yeah,
it's food, right? I mean,
right.
So what's noteworthy about Caribbean food? Is it fish? Is it spices?
It's the spice blends and the fruit.
Okay.
It is just amazing, and that's going to be out at the Cordova Food Truck Park at what is that? 855 Macon Road.
Oh, that's a neat little tucked away place. It's not right off of Germantown Road. But
we met E&L Hot Dogs last week.
Oh yeah.
And
is he set up over there?
Yeah, he hangs out over there.
Oh, I might have to go.
So
get lunch.
shout out to Lauren Love from last week because man, those were some good hot dogs.
Yeah, they lived up to the hype. So anyway, and I'm sure Scott J. Carroll has probably got something cooking because he's been recording quite a bit of material. So once he gets that edited,
well, his latest episode of International Market went up yesterday.
Okay,
so it is up there, ready to go.
So darkoakmedia.com, right, Allan? Okay. And then to shift gears, I want to say that if you're out there and you have a deck, if you want a deck or a pergola or a patio cover, or really anything made out of wood or a dock. Those are fun to build.
Oh, yes.
Anything made out of wood for the outside of your home, give me a call. You can call me directly at 901-921-7105 and go to my website, thorshomes.com. All right, Allan, we've teased this a few times a few weeks ago, and I stopped teasing it because somehow we always run out of time. But it's ladders. There's a lot of things to do with ladders, and ladder technology sort of continues to evolve, I would say, in terms of what they build them out of. But we want to talk a little bit about ladders because you and I don't know if this is a point counterpoint. There's one in particular I wanted to bring up, the multifunctional ladder.
The platform ladder.
Explain what that looks like, because I find I'm a little dubious about those. But explain what I am
a complete convert.
Okay.
Here's what you have. You have your standard extension ladder, which is just basically two pieces and a clip in between.
Right.
You have your A-frame, which is again three pieces, a little platform, a hinge, and the ladder swings out. Well, with a lot of engineering and a lot of measuring, we now have the multi-platform, which has a hinge in the center. And much like your extension ladder has an extension on each leg, now they've gone in and added tiny little extensions so you have self-leveling legs.
Right.
And the biggest idea is that you can unhinge this thing and make it an A-frame. You can flip it back up and make it an extension ladder. If you've got two of them, you can build a platform in between them.
You can change the angle. Some of them have three hinges.
Yes, there are some that get carried away. Right now, I am totally in love with the standard 18-foot. You would just basically call it an A-frame style platform ladder because
when you say so, you fold it in half and now it's 9 feet tall, right?
Well, you fold it in half and it's 6 foot.
That's right, because these things
because you have two extensions. You have an extension on each side.
Right.
And the thing I've discovered with these is that it is a double-sided ladder.
Right.
So yesterday, working on an alarm system, the gentleman that I was training, instead of me being up in the ceiling and going, okay, do you see this button? And I'm yelling at the guy, right? Instead, he climbed up the other side of the ladder with me. So we're one on each side of the frame, and I'm going, okay, hit that button, hit this button. So we were both safely on the same ladder at the same height, able to do work on a job together.
Well, good for you, Allan. That's a nice, sweet story. I've seen bad things happen with these.
You have to lock them properly.
Bingo. I was about to say I probably should. I think we might have to, wrap this discussion up next week. My biggest concern with these ladders, though, is you're putting all of this weight and stress on three very key little points, and if the pin slips or
the pin
if something bends, well,
the pin does not slip.
If something happens,
it's closed properly.
I like weight distributed evenly and not relying on one piece of hardware, with my life or anything. So
right.
I don't.
You got your sword fight ready? Because
we'll bring that.
We're coming back. For
I think we set this
one
up for next week. We definitely have to do a point counterpoint, but there's actually other ladder discussions that we need to bring up. I just felt like, Allan, we put it off long enough, and so that's it. It's going to be a ladder throwdown next week.
Yeah,
we're putting it off again.
Allan and I are going head to head, but you're going to have to stay tuned until next week. But Allan, another episode of Tool Talk Radio is in the can.
Thanks for using that again.
Yeah, bump. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.